Hello friends, my name is Marinez, and today I'll be talking about a graphic novel series I finished recently, Sweet Tooth by LeMire. This graphic novel series is set in a post-apocalyptic world where sickness has wiped out most of the population. Now all of the children being born into this world are human-animal hybrids, and they are the only ones that are immune to the sickness. Even though it has slowed down, the sickness continues to pick at the human population. Our main character Gus is one of these hybrids, and while some of the hybrids are more feral or more uneducated, Gus is very human-like. When we meet Gus, he's living alone with his father. His mother died when he was a baby, and all he knows is the cabin he grew up in, his father, and the woods that his father tells him never to leave. Things get complicated when Gus is found by some hunters, though he's saved by a man named Jeopard. Very early on in this first volume, Gus has to make the decision of whether or not to listen to what his father has told him all his life about leaving the forest. And we go on from there. I really enjoyed this series. I read about 14 graphic novels in total last year in 2015, so I am not by any means the biggest consumer of this category. I love it in theory, but more often than not, I find that the stories aren't fleshed out enough to fit my particular tastes. I feel like here, in just 6 volumes, LeMire tells a full story with fleshed out characters and real emotional impact. LeMire also does the artwork for the series, and it's interesting. First off, the story is gritty and dark. It's post-apocalyptic, like I mentioned, and a lot of it is about just civilization on its last legs and the struggle to deal with these hybrids, what they mean, incorporating them into society, and how to treat something that is animal and human. It's about the lengths that people will go to do what they believe is right in a lot of instances, and the major conflict within the story is that each of our main characters is doing something they believe is right, but that's taking them all in different directions. That dark atmosphere is reflected well in the aesthetic that LeMire has going, even down to the texture of the paper. It's matte and paper bag-like, and I know that there are probably better terms to describe them that I don't know, but usually when I have graphic novels, it tends to be a little bit shinier and brighter, and this completely is not. And I know a lot of people complain about LeMire's artwork. I'm not familiar with his art anywhere else besides this graphic novel series, so I don't know if this is what he's done specifically or only what he's capable of, but in any case, I feel like the art matches the story incredibly well. I was talking to somebody else about this art style, and I was struggling to find a word to describe it, and she used the word grotesque, which is a strong word, but I think it fits pretty well to the style that he incorporates here in the series. I have a feeling there may be people who won't get past the art style into the story, but as I said, I thought it was really fitting, and I thought the story was strong enough, the characters and the plot were strong enough to make up for it if it was something that you didn't enjoy. At points, his art style seemed a little bit slapdash just because you had these basic shapes and not a lot of details, and there are characters you recognize because you've been reading about them, but they weren't very well defined, and in that way, I think LeMire uses this art style to kind of explore anatomy, specifically because we have these human-animal hybrids, and a lot of times he uses kind of a hazy picture to draw a comparison either between a hybrid and a human, or some part of nature and a human, or else some part of living and dead. My frame's a little tight, but I wanted to show you this specifically, where this is Jeopard, a character that we know, but again, he's very hazy in this, and it's very clearly trying to paint a picture and draw some comparisons. So I think that art style is a purposeful choice. Even if you don't like it, knowing I think that it has a purpose will help you overall in the enjoyment of the story. I really enjoyed the first volume, and I think it did such a good job of opening up the story and getting me interested in reading the rest. I recap television, and I am just always so fascinated about pilot episodes. I think pilots have so much work to do, and they very rarely do it well, but they've got to introduce characters, exposit, set up the world, set up the premise of the series or the season-long arc. Plus, they have to have all of the ingredients of an insular episode. They have to have a beginning, middle, and end, and something within that episode itself to keep us going. So it's a lot to do, and I recognize that, but it's also why I get so happy when I watch a good pilot, and I often have that same feeling with first volumes in graphic novel series. They feel very pilot-like, and it's very rare that I have more to say about a first volume other than it felt like a first volume. We were introduced introduced to characters, the world was set up, there was some exposition, that's it kind of feeling. But in this case, I was actually looking forward to reading more because I was already invested. Right within the first scene or two, we were in the world and we understood what was at stake. We get such a great sense of the characters right as they enter the story, but LeMire also leaves room for them to be fleshed out and grow. Volume 4 was definitely my favorite, and it was the only one that I rated 5 out of 5 stars. It was so incredibly intense. While I read 1 through 4 in pretty quick succession, I paused after 4 because I was just so worried about what was going to happen going forward in the series, and that is a credit, I think, to the storytelling, that this whole thing made me incredibly tense, but that also I had the foresight. He set it up enough that I had the foresight that bad things were coming. Just after this point, I was invested, my feelings were invested, and I knew that we were reaching kind of the climax of the story. In Volume 5, LeMire takes a brief pause from the impending doom and gives us some backstory. What you suspect is the main mystery of the story is answered in Volume 5. It was unexpected for me to find so many answers in the penultimate volume, but I think it fits really well with a lesson that LeMire is trying to get out about the importance of what comes before versus the importance of where we go from here. My favorite character was definitely Jeopard, which is a little interesting and surprising for me because he's exactly the kind of character I don't gravitate towards. He's basically the hard ass with a tragic backstory, but that is absolutely putting it too simply. I thought his backstory was done very well because it wasn't there to excuse his behavior, simply because it fit in so well with the story, and it was part of the larger tragedy that everybody is living in this story. It is also very consistent with his character. You realize that Jeopard is never acting in any other way except for being Jeopard. It's not like he was being one way and then you learn something about it and oh, he's just always been acting consistently, and the way we see that and the way that we understand that changes as we get to know him more. I wanted to keep that all vague and spoiler free, but there is one little spoilery thing about Jeopard that I wanted to talk about, so please, if you have not read the series, click on the link to skip to the end of the video where I talk about the giveaway. So just get out of this spoilery section now. I hope you're gone. One of the most shocking things to me about this entire series was such a small reveal, and that is of what Jeopard used to do before the apocalypse. I'm not sure if I've ever encountered any other post-apocalyptic stories that featured a main character who was a former athlete, though I'm not thinking about it very in depth right now. So if I've missed anything or if you know of any more, let me know down in the comments. This reminded me a little bit of Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, because in that story we follow a group of artists after the apocalypse, and we think about more art in a rebuilding society, and we kind of get to see how actors or artists would do in that society and the kind of things that would be important to them. And in this case, we see that a little bit with a former athlete. Did that moment and reveal stand out to you, or was it just me that I was kind of blown away that that was part of his backstory? One, because it fit really well, and two, because it was just so normal. And I think it came in volume 2, so we spend this whole volume like thinking about how this world is pretty messed up and things are kind of crazy, and then we have the scene where something so normal about Jeopard is revealed, and I don't know, I really enjoyed that moment. I love that piece of his backstory. I like that it comes back again later towards the end of the series, and I just wanted to see if that was simply a me thing or if that stood out to you guys as well. Also, before we head back into non-spoilery territory, I wanted to ask you guys what you thought about the explanation as far as where Gus came from and where the sickness came from. That explanation to me felt like on the other end of the former athlete thing. So we have this world that is kind of crazy, things are falling apart, bad things are happening. The former athlete thing felt so normal in that story, and then we go to the explanation of where Gus came from and the sickness, and it's on that other end of like extreme to normal, and it just hits this mythical point, this mythical portion, and a story that I thought was pushing science on us as an explanation. Well, I expected that something science related was going to be involved, and then it hits this mythical thing, and I still am not quite sure how to feel about that. I enjoyed it in terms of progression of the story, but I don't know if it was just so unexpected that it's hard for me to process, or if it was just something that I didn't enjoy. So there you have it. Overall, I would rate this entire series about a 4.25 out of 5 stars. Though from an enjoyment perspective, I will count it as one of my favorite graphic novel series. I highly recommend it. I would love more people to read it so that we can talk about it. And let's be real, that's basically why I ever recommend anything or talk about anything on this channel. To that end, I am hosting a giveaway. I will be giving away the first 3 volumes in this graphic novel series. The usual rules apply. You must be 18 or older, so that way you can share your address with me and I can send you these volumes. You must be subscribed to this channel in some way that I can verify, and you must live in a place or a country where Book Depository will ship to, because I will be sending them through Book Depository. I want to chat with you all in the comments, but if you are entering the giveaway specifically, please leave that somewhere in your comment and that will count as your entry. I will use a random number generator and go by posting order in order to pick a winner on June 6th. Let me know if you have any questions about the giveaway. Let's chat about this graphic novel. If you've read it, if you're interested in reading it, leave all of that stuff in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys soon. Hello friends, my name is Marinés, and today I'll be talking about a graphic novel series I finished recently, Sweet Tooth by LeMire.